So triads are incredibly boring to practice, especially if you practice them like this. And while it's important to practice them like that, maybe you're not ready for that and you want to try something a little bit different. So in this lesson, I'm going to show you how I like to practice triads and how a lot of professional guitarists see triads. But to do that, I'm going to need some help from some other people. Thanks, guys. So a triad is a root, a third, and a fifth of a chord. So if we play that together, I'll play the root, he'll play the third, and he'll play the fifth, that would sound like this. 1, 2, 3. But triads can be inverted, meaning we can play the notes in different orders. So instead, this time, I'll play the third, he'll play the root, and he'll play the fifth. That would sound something like this. 1, 2, 3. So in this lesson, I'm going to show you how I like to practice triads to make it a little bit easier. Thanks, guys. My name's Jesse Glick. This is a 5-Minute Monday. Let's get into it. Alright, so for this lesson, we're going to stick with D major as our key because that first D major chord that you learn actually has one of the triads built into it. We just need to get rid of that root note, and now we have this. So that's a D major triad. So how do I build triads off of this and any other chord that you know on the guitar? We're going to take that triad and take the highest note that you're playing. So in this case, it's on the 2nd fret. That's an F sharp. And we need to take that away and find an F sharp. So I don't know if you realize this, but if you literally just press subscribe, you can literally change my life. So press subscribe. Let's get back to it. On the next string over that we're not playing. So for example, if I have this D triad, the next F sharp note I have is on the 4th fret of the D string here. So what I'm going to do is take this triad, use these two notes still, and then play this F sharp. So now we have another D major triad. So we go from here, taking away this note and putting it here, and that's a D major. Now we're going to repeat the step. This time our highest note is the D note, where my middle finger is, 3rd fret. So now we need to find a D note on the A string, because that's the next string that we're not playing. So that would look like this. Going from here, move this D here. There's another D major triad. Well, we still have one more string to get to, that low E string. So what we need to do is take the highest note, in this case it's the A note on the 2nd fret under my index finger, and find an A on the low E string, which is here. So we go from here to here. So in total, just by moving one note at a time, we have 4 different versions of a D major triad. We have this, 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 and this. So we can take that concept with any chord shape that you can imagine on the guitar. So you might know a D chord like this. The next D chord that you might know happens here on the 5th fret, like this. So let's take that same idea and make some triads out of it. For this, we need to borrow the A note on the low E string. So we go from here, this is the chord, and this is the first triad that's involved in the chord. So what we need to do is take the highest note that I'm playing, in this case under my index finger on the 5th fret, that's an A note, and we need to find an A on the next string over that I'm not playing, which happens here. So that would be our next inversion. So we go here, and as you can tell, 2 of the notes are staying the same. So we have this, this, and now we'll take the note under my ring finger, in this case, that's the F sharp, and we're going to find an F sharp on the next string over and keep these 2 fingers where they are. So that would go from here, and then here's an F sharp. So there's our next triad. There's still one more string, that low E string, so we need to take the highest note that I'm playing under my index finger, that's the root note, a D, and find a D on the low E string, which happens here. So now we have, and you can hear that that's the same as this. Alright, so that's 2 different chord shapes right there. So far we have, and let's go for one more type of D chord that you've probably learned, which is your normal bar chord D shape. So now we're going to take the same concept of this bar chord. The top 3 strings are these 3 notes. So what I need to do to make the next triad is take that highest note, in this case that's a D, and find a D on the next string over, which happens here. So now these 2 fingers stay where they are, and I go from here to here. Next up, I take the highest note, which is under my index finger. That's an A note. So I need to find an A note on the A string because that's the next string over. So that sounds like this. And you might notice that that's the same shape that you learned earlier right here. So now we're here. We need to take the note under my index finger and move it to the lowest E string. So far we have this. So our last step is finding this note right here, that F sharp, on the low E string, which happens here. So an easier way to play that is like this. And then again, you might notice this is the same shape and pattern as when I played it here. So if you want to apply this to minor chords, you just take the same idea and find your major third and move it down towards the nut 1 fret. So if I have this D major triad, my F sharp is here, that's my third. I need to move it down 1 fret, so now I have this. So let's take that idea somewhere else. Let's try right here. We have this D major triad, so I have my third, my fifth, and my root. So if my third is here and it needs to go down a string, now I have this. And that's a D minor triad. So it's really that easy to build triads. Just take chord shapes that you know and sub one of the notes for a different octave, and all of a sudden you have all these different fingerings to play the same chord. So how can we apply this musically? Let's take a chord progression, like a very simple chord progression that you might like soloing over, a pentatonic progression, and play those triads one at a time over each chord. So I'll give you an example. For this progression, it's going to be D major, A major, B minor, and G. Very common pop progression. So this is how that would sound like. All right, so now we're going to take the chords I showed you, D, A, B minor, and G, and use triads to make some music. We'll play the triads one at a time like this. D, A, B minor, and G. Now I'll play D here. Same concept though. I'll play A here. I'll play B minor here. And G here. Alright, so quick recap on the lesson. You're just taking a chord shape that you know, take the highest note of that chord and move it to a lower octave. The same note, just move it down. And over time, when you take all these random chord shapes that you know and apply these ideas, you can build your own triads and see how these inversions actually work, and then use that to start soloing and finding your chord tones. So hopefully this video helped. I tried to keep it as short as possible, but it's really up to you to build your own triads. Really appreciate you watching the video. Consider subscribing. My name's Jesse Glick. That was 5 Minute Monday. I'll see you in the next one.